Pregnant and weary, Grace found herself abandoned in the wilderness with only a thin coat and a small bag of supplies. The settlers she had traveled with decided to leave her behind, deeming her a burden. No support, no companionship, just the quiet forest and biting cold. She trudged through the snow, feeling hopeless and alone. But then, through the dense trees, an Apache warrior emerged, calm and observant, his presence unexpected. She feared her journey had ended. But destiny had other plans. Before we begin, share where you're watching from and subscribe if you trust that destiny can work in mysterious ways. Grace was part of a group of settlers traveling west. She was pregnant and alone. Her husband had died before the journey began. Despite this, she hoped for a fresh start. The group was led by Mr. Thompson. He was a practical man focused on survival and progress. The journey was hard. The days were long and the nights were cold. Grace felt tired all the time. She tried to keep up with the group, but it was not easy. Her pregnancy made things difficult. She was slower and needed more rest. Still, she pushed on, determined to reach the new land. One afternoon, the sky turned dark. Clouds covered the sun and the wind picked up. A storm was coming. The group hurried to find shelter. Mr. Thompson gathered everyone and gave clear instructions. They needed to set up camp quickly. Grace did her best to help, but she was struggling. As the storm rolled in, tension rose. People were worried about their supplies and safety. The wind howled and snow began to fall. It was cold and the storm showed no sign of stopping. Grace shivered under her thin coat. She felt scared and alone. Mr. Thompson called a meeting with the other leaders. They spoke in low voices, glancing at Grace from time to time. She knew they were discussing her. Her heart sank. She feared what they might decide. After the meeting, Mr. Thompson approached Grace. He did not look happy. He told her that the group had made a decision. They believed she was a burden. The harsh conditions made it hard for them to take care of her. They had limited food and supplies. Taking care of a pregnant woman was too risky. Grace pleaded with him. She promised to work harder, to do whatever it took to stay. But Mr. Thompson shook his head. The decision was made. They would leave her behind. Grace felt a wave of despair. She was scared for her life and the life of her unborn child. The next morning, the group prepared to move on. Grace watched as they packed their things. She felt a deep sense of loss. The other settlers avoided her gaze. Some looked guilty, others just focused on their tasks. No one spoke to her. Mr. Thompson gave her a small bag of supplies. It was not much. Just a little food and a thin blanket. Grace thanked him with a heavy heart. She knew it was the last kindness she would receive from them. As the group set off, she stood alone, watching them disappear into the distance. The storm continued and Grace had no choice but to find shelter. She walked slowly, her feet sinking into the snow. Each step was a struggle. Her body ached and her mind was filled with fear. She had to survive, not just for herself but for her baby. The forest around her was dense and quiet. The snow muffled all sound. Grace felt isolated. She stumbled through the trees, searching for a place to rest. Her breath came in short gasps and her fingers were numb from the cold. Finally, she found a large tree with thick branches. It offered some protection from the wind. Grace sat down, wrapping the thin blanket around her. It was not enough to keep her warm, but it was better than nothing. She closed her eyes, trying to gather her strength. As she sat there, memories of her husband filled her mind. She missed him terribly. He had been her support and her love. Without him, she felt incomplete. Tears filled her eyes, but she brushed them away. She needed to stay strong. The night crept in, and with it came new sounds. The forest was alive with noises she did not recognize. Each rustle and crack made her heart race. She tried to ignore them, focusing on her breathing. In and out, slow and steady. Despite the fear, exhaustion took over. Grace drifted into a restless sleep, the cold seeping into her bones. She dreamed of warmth and safety, of a place where she and her child could be happy. But in her dreams, the storm was always there, a reminder of her reality. She woke several times, the cold biting into her skin. Each time she adjusted the blanket, trying to find some warmth. The night seemed endless, each minute dragging on. She knew she had to make it through, but it felt impossible. As dawn approached, the storm began to ease. The wind died down and the snow stopped falling. Grace opened her eyes to find the world covered in white. It was beautiful but dangerous. She knew she had to move to find better shelter and more food. With great effort, Grace stood up. Her body protested, but she ignored the pain. She had to keep going. She took a deep breath and started walking. Each step was a challenge, but she refused to give up. Her child depended on her. The forest seemed endless, but Grace pushed on. She looked for signs of life, anything that might help her survive. Her mind was focused on one goal, finding a safe place to rest. She knew it was out there somewhere. She just had to find it. Despite her fear and exhaustion, Grace held onto hope. It was a small flicker in her heart, but it was enough. She thought of her husband and the life they had planned. She would do everything she could to make that life a reality for her child. As she walked, the forest around her began to change. The trees were less dense and the ground was easier to walk on. Grace felt a surge of relief. Perhaps she was getting closer to safety. She quickened her pace, eager to leave the storm behind. The journey was far from over, but Grace was determined. She had already faced so much and she would not give up now. Her heart was filled with a quiet strength. She would find a way to survive. For herself, for her baby, and for the future they would share. Grace walked through the forest, feeling the weight of her situation. She was alone now. The group that had been her hope was gone. The snow crunched under her feet as she moved. She was cold and tired, but she had to keep going. The sky was gray and the air was sharp against her skin. Grace pulled her coat tighter, but it did little to keep her warm. Her mind was filled with thoughts of survival. She needed to find shelter, something more than a tree to protect her from the cold. As she walked, her thoughts drifted back to her husband. They had dreamed of a new life out west. It was supposed to be a fresh start for them. But now she was alone, carrying his child. The loss felt overwhelming at times, but she pushed it aside. She had to stay focused. Grace's body ached with every step. Her legs felt heavy and her back hurt from the weight of her pregnancy. But she knew she couldn't stop. She had to find a place where she could rest and gather her strength. The forest was quiet except for the sound of the wind through the trees. Grace listened carefully, hoping to hear something that might lead her to safety. The silence was eerie, making her feel even more isolated. As she continued, Grace thought about the settlers. She wondered if they felt any guilt for leaving her behind. She tried not to dwell on it, but the thought lingered. It was hard to accept that they had abandoned her, but she knew she had to move on. Finally, she saw a small clearing ahead. It wasn't much, but it was a change from the dense trees. Grace stepped into the open space, feeling a slight sense of relief. She could see the sky more clearly here. It was still gray, but at least it wasn't snowing. In the center of the clearing was a fallen tree. It was large and offered some protection from the wind. Grace decided to rest there for a moment. She sat down, leaning against the trunk. Her body was grateful for the break. As she sat, Grace tried to calm her mind. She thought about her husband again, remembering his smile and his laughter. Those memories gave her strength. They reminded her of the love they had shared and the future they had planned. The day was passing, and Grace knew she needed to make a plan. She thought about her supplies, the little food she had left. She would need to find more soon. Her body needed energy, especially now with the baby growing inside her. Grace looked around the clearing, searching for anything useful. She found some dry branches and gathered them together. They might help her start a fire later. At least she would have a little warmth tonight. As the sun began to set, the temperature dropped. Grace shivered, wrapping the blanket tightly around herself. She knew she needed to find better shelter, but for now this would have to do. The night was long and cold. Grace tried to sleep, but it was difficult. Every sound in the forest made her jump. She was on edge, her senses heightened by the fear of being alone. But she forced herself to rest, knowing she needed her strength. As she lay there, her mind wandered back to the journey with the settlers. She remembered the day her husband had died. It was sudden, an accident that took him from her. The pain of that loss was still fresh even now. But Grace also remembered his words, how he had always encouraged her to be strong. She held onto those memories, using them as a source of comfort. She knew he would want her to keep going for their child. The hours passed slowly, and Grace drifted in and out of sleep. Each time she woke, she checked her surroundings, making sure she was safe. The night was quiet, and she was grateful for that small mercy. Finally, the first light of dawn broke through the trees. Grace sat up, feeling the chill in the air. Her body was stiff, but she forced herself to stand. She needed to move to keep warm and find more food. As she prepared to leave the clearing, Grace thought about her next steps. She needed to find a stream or river. Water was essential, and it would also be a place where she might find some food. With a deep breath, Grace set off again. Her steps were slow but steady. She was determined to survive, to find a way through this. Her child depended on her, and she would not let them down. The forest seemed endless, but Grace kept moving. She was guided by instinct and hope. Her mind focused on the task at hand, pushing away the fear and doubt. She knew she had to stay strong. As she walked, Grace noticed small signs of life. Birds in the trees, tracks in the snow. These were good signs. It meant she was not completely alone. Nature was all around her, and she hoped it would guide her to what she needed. The sun rose higher, bringing a little warmth to the day. Grace felt a small spark of hope. She had made it through another night. She was still here, still fighting. That was something to hold on to. With each step, Grace felt her resolve strengthen. She would find shelter. She would find food. She would protect her child, just as her husband would have wanted. She was not giving up. As the morning passed, Grace continued her search. She was tired and hungry, but she pushed on. Her path was uncertain, but she trusted herself. She had come this far, and she would not stop now. Grace's journey was just beginning. The road ahead was unknown, but she was ready to face it. She carried her husband's memory with her, a source of strength and love. She would survive for him and for their child. With determination in her heart, Grace moved forward. The forest was vast, but she was not afraid. She would find her way step by step, one day at a time. Her story was far from over. Grace continued her journey through the forest. The air was crisp and cold, her breath visible in the morning light. She focused on moving forward, her mind set on finding shelter and food. Each step was a reminder of her purpose to survive for her child. The forest was dense, but Grace noticed small signs of life. Birds flitted between the trees, and she spotted a rabbit darting through the underbrush. These glimpses of life encouraged her. She was not alone in this vast wilderness. As the day wore on, Grace's hunger grew. She had eaten the last of her food the previous night. Her body ached for nourishment, and she knew she had to find something soon. Her eyes scanned the ground for anything edible, but the snow made it difficult. She paused by a large tree, resting for a moment. Her mind drifted back to her husband, remembering his strength and kindness. Those memories gave her comfort, a reminder of the love they had shared. She knew he would want her to keep going, to be strong for their child. While resting, Grace heard a noise in the distance. It was faint, but it sounded like water. Her heart lifted at the thought of finding a stream or river. Water was essential, and it might lead her to food. With renewed energy, she set off in the direction of the sound. The terrain was uneven, and Grace stumbled several times. But she kept moving, driven by the hope of finding what she needed. The sound of water grew louder, guiding her through the trees. Finally, she reached a small stream, its clear water flowing over rocks. Grace knelt by the stream, cupping her hands to drink. The cold water was refreshing, reviving her tired body. She drank deeply, grateful for the relief it provided. It was a small victory, but it gave her strength. After quenching her thirst, Grace looked around for food. She searched the stream's edge, hoping to find something edible. Her eyes fell on some wild berries growing nearby. She picked a few, testing them cautiously. They were tart but safe to eat. Grateful, she gathered more, filling her small bag. As Grace ate, she felt a sense of hope. She had found water and food, small steps toward survival. Her resolve strengthened, knowing she could provide for herself and her child. She rested by the stream, letting the moment of peace wash over her. The sun was beginning to set when Grace heard a rustling in the bushes. She froze, her heart pounding. The noise grew closer, and she braced herself for whatever might appear. Her mind raced with possibilities, both hopeful and fearful. Through the trees, a figure emerged. It was a man, tall and strong. He moved with a quiet confidence, his eyes scanning the area. Grace's initial fear turned to curiosity. The man was not dressed like the settlers. His clothes were different, blending into the forest. The man saw Grace and paused. They stared at each other, the moment tense and uncertain. Grace felt a mix of fear and hope. She was alone in the wilderness, and this stranger could be either a threat or a help. Her instincts told her to be cautious but open. The man approached slowly, his movements calm and deliberate. Grace watched him carefully, ready to defend herself if necessary. But there was something in his demeanor that suggested he meant no harm. He stopped a short distance away, giving her space. Grace took a deep breath, trying to appear calm. She knew she had to communicate to understand his intentions. She gestured to the stream and the berries, showing that she meant no harm. The man nodded, understanding her simple message. They stood in silence for a moment, assessing each other. The man seemed curious about her, but not threatening. Grace sensed a quiet strength in him, something that reminded her of her husband. It gave her a sense of comfort, a feeling that she was not alone. The man moved closer, offering her a piece of dried meat from his bag. Grace hesitated, but her hunger urged her to accept. She took the food, thanking him with a nod. The meat was tough but nourishing, a welcome addition to her meager supplies. As they ate, Grace observed the man. His features were strong and weathered, marked by a life lived close to nature. She wondered about his story, how he had come to be here. But for now, it was enough that he was not a threat. The sun dipped below the horizon and the forest grew darker. The man gestured for Grace to follow him. She hesitated, unsure of his intentions. But something in his eyes told her to trust him. She gathered her things and followed him into the trees. They walked for a while, the man leading the way with ease. Grace tried to keep up, her steps careful on the uneven ground. She was tired, but the promise of safety urged her on. The man's presence was reassuring, a beacon in the growing darkness. Eventually, they reached a small clearing with a makeshift camp. A fire burned in the center, its warmth inviting. The man gestured for Grace to sit by the fire. She did, grateful for the heat and light. The fire crackled, filling the silence with its comforting sound. The man sat across from her, watching her with quiet eyes. Grace felt a sense of peace, a feeling that she had not experienced in a long time. She knew she was not alone anymore. This man, whoever he was, had chosen to help her. As the night wore on, Grace felt her body relax. The warmth of the fire and the presence of the stranger eased her worries. She realized she could rest, to gather her strength for whatever lay ahead. Her heart was filled with gratitude, a feeling that gave her hope. In the quiet of the night, Grace felt a connection forming. She and the man were different, but they shared this moment of humanity. It was a small thread of understanding, a bridge between their worlds. She knew the journey ahead would be challenging, but for now, she was content to rest by the fire, the stranger by her side. As the fire crackled softly, Grace sat quietly, her eyes on the flames. The warmth was soothing, a welcome change from the biting cold she had endured. The man, whose name she did not yet know, moved around the camp with practiced ease. He added wood to the fire, keeping it bright and strong. Grace watched him, curious about his life and how he had come to find her in the forest. She knew he was different from the settlers, his clothes and manner showing a deep connection to the land. She wanted to understand him, to learn more about the world he came from. The silence between them was comfortable, a shared understanding that words were not necessary for now. Grace knew that communication would be a challenge, but she was determined to bridge the gap between them. She felt a need to connect, to learn from this man who had helped her. As the night wore on, Grace decided to try and communicate. She pointed to herself and said her name, Grace. The man nodded, understanding her gesture. He pointed to himself and said, Taza. His voice was calm and steady, and Grace felt a sense of relief knowing his name. With their names exchanged, Grace felt a small connection forming. She wanted to know more about Taza and his world. She pointed to the surrounding forest and then to him, trying to ask if this was his home. Taza nodded, a small smile on his face. He gestured around him, indicating that the land was indeed part of his life. Grace's curiosity grew. She pointed to the sky and then mimed the sun rising and setting, trying to ask how long he had been in the area. Taza understood her question. He held up his fingers, indicating many years. Grace nodded, impressed by his deep knowledge of the land. As they communicated through gestures and simple words, Grace learned more about Taza. He was part of the Apache people, a group that lived in harmony with nature. They hunted, gathered, and respected the cycles of the earth. His world was different from hers, but it intrigued her. Taza showed her some of the skills he used to survive. He demonstrated how to set a simple trap for small animals using sticks and leaves. Grace watched carefully, eager to learn. She knew these skills could help her survive in the wilderness. Grace also shared what she knew. She showed Taza how she used the berries she had found, mashing them into a paste that could be stored for later use. Taza watched with interest, nodding in appreciation of her resourcefulness. Through these exchanges, a bond began to form. Grace felt a sense of respect for Taza and his way of life. He was patient and kind, willing to teach her despite their differences. She appreciated his quiet strength, a quality that reminded her of her husband. As the days passed, Grace adapted to the rhythm of life with Taza. They moved through the forest together, searching for food and shelter. Taza showed her how to find edible plants and taught her which ones to avoid. Grace absorbed the knowledge, grateful for his guidance. Their communication improved as they spent more time together. Grace picked up some of Taza's language, learning simple words and phrases. It was a slow process, but it brought them closer. Each new word was a step toward understanding, a bridge between their worlds. Grace found herself drawn to Taza's way of life. It was simple and connected to the earth, a contrast to the harshness of the settler's journey. She admired the respect he showed for the land and its creatures. It was a different kind of strength, one that resonated with her. Taza, in turn, seemed to appreciate Grace's determination and resilience. He saw her willingness to learn and adapt, qualities that were vital for survival. They worked together, each contributing to their shared goal of living in harmony with the land. As they traveled, Grace learned more about Taza's culture. He shared stories of his people, tales of bravery and wisdom passed down through generations. Grace listened intently, fascinated by the depth of history and tradition in his words. Taza also spoke of the challenges his people faced. The encroachment of settlers on their land was a constant threat, one that required vigilance and strength. Grace understood the tension, having witnessed it herself on the journey west. She felt a connection to Taza's struggle, empathizing with his desire to protect his home. Despite the challenges, Grace and Taza found moments of joy in their shared journey. They laughed at small victories, like catching a fish or finding a patch of wild berries. These moments brought them closer, building a partnership based on trust and mutual respect. Grace felt her heart opening to this new life. She was learning to see the world through Taza's eyes, appreciating the beauty and balance of nature. It was a different kind of existence, one that offered peace and purpose. As the days turned into weeks, Grace realized she was no longer just surviving. She was living, truly living, in a way she hadn't expected. Her heart was healing, slowly but surely, from the pain of loss. She found solace in the quiet strength of the forest and in Taza's steady presence. Grace knew she was on a new path, one that would lead her to places she couldn't yet imagine. She was grateful for Taza, for his friendship and guidance. Together, they had formed a bond that transcended language and culture, a testament to the power of understanding and respect. With Taza by her side, Grace felt ready to face whatever challenges lay ahead. She was no longer the scared, abandoned woman left in the snow. She was growing stronger, more resilient, finding her place in this new world. As they sat by the fire one evening, Grace looked at Taza, her heart full of gratitude. She realized that she had found not just a guide, but a friend. Their journey was just beginning, and she was ready to embrace it, step by step, day by day. Grace continued to journey with Taza through the forest. Each day was a new lesson in survival and adaptation. Grace's pregnancy was becoming more apparent, and it made her movements slower. She felt the weight of her growing child and knew she needed more support. Taza noticed Grace's struggle. He was attentive, offering help without making her feel weak. He understood the importance of her condition, and his quiet presence gave her comfort. Grace appreciated his care, feeling a deepening bond between them. One morning, Taza decided to lead Grace to a safer place. He knew of a hidden valley where they could find better shelter. The journey would be a challenge, but it promised security. Grace trusted Taza's judgment and agreed to follow him. As they traveled, the terrain became more difficult. The path was rocky, and Grace had to be careful with each step. Taza stayed close, guiding her over obstacles and ensuring her safety. His support was unwavering, a constant source of strength. Along the way, they encountered various challenges. The forest was home to wild animals, some of which posed a threat. Taza taught Grace how to recognize danger signs and how to react if they were approached. His knowledge was invaluable, and Grace listened intently. One afternoon, they heard the growl of a nearby animal. Taza signaled for Grace to stop, his eyes scanning the forest. Grace's heart raced, but she followed Taza's lead, staying calm. The animal eventually moved on, and they continued their journey. Despite the challenges, Grace felt a growing connection to the land. She was learning to see its patterns and rhythms, understanding the balance that Taza had spoken of. Her respect for nature deepened, and she found peace in its simplicity. As they neared the hidden valley, Taza shared more about his past. He spoke of his family and the traditions that shaped his life. Grace listened with interest, appreciating the richness of his culture. Taza's stories were filled with wisdom and resilience, qualities that resonated with her. Grace also shared her story with Taza. She spoke of her husband and their dreams of a new life. Taza listened with empathy, understanding the pain of loss. Their shared experiences created a bond, one that transcended words. Finally, they reached the hidden valley. It was a serene place surrounded by tall trees and a clear stream. The tranquility of the valley was a welcome change from the harshness of the forest. Grace felt a sense of relief knowing they had found a safe haven. In the valley, Taza set up a more permanent camp. He showed Grace how to build a sturdy shelter using branches and leaves. Together, they worked to create a space that offered protection and comfort. Grace felt a sense of accomplishment as the shelter took shape. With the camp established, they focused on gathering food. Taza taught Grace how to fish in the stream and how to identify edible plants. Grace was eager to learn, knowing these skills were vital for their survival. She felt empowered by the knowledge, a feeling that gave her confidence. As they settled into life in the valley, Grace and Taza's bond grew stronger. They shared responsibilities, working together to ensure their safety and well-being. Their partnership was built on trust and mutual respect, qualities that deepened their connection. Grace felt a sense of belonging she hadn't experienced since her husband's death. The valley was becoming a home, a place where she could envision a future. Her heart was healing, and she was grateful for Taza's presence in her life. The days passed, and Grace adapted to her new environment. She found joy in simple tasks, like tending to the small garden they had planted. The rhythm of life in the valley was soothing, a reminder of the beauty in simplicity. Taza continued to teach Grace about his culture. He showed her how to make tools and how to craft items from natural materials. Grace was fascinated by the creativity and resourcefulness of his people. She admired their ability to live in harmony with the land. As they spent more time together, Grace and Taza's relationship deepened. There was a growing warmth between them, a hint of attraction that neither could ignore. They were cautious, aware of the complexities of their pasts, but the connection was undeniable. One evening, as they sat by the fire, Grace felt a sense of peace. She looked at Taza, grateful for his friendship and guidance. She realized she was no longer alone, that she had found a partner in this new life. Grace knew their journey was far from over. There would be more challenges to face, but she felt ready to meet them. With Taza by her side, she had hope for the future. Together, they would continue to build a life in the valley, one filled with promise and possibility. As the fire crackled, Grace reflected on her journey. She had come so far from the frightened woman left in the snow. She was stronger now, more resilient, and deeply connected to her new family and community. Her heart was full, her spirit renewed, ready to embrace whatever lay ahead. Life in the hidden valley settled into a peaceful routine for Grace and Taza. The days were filled with work and learning. Grace felt a sense of calm she hadn't known in a long time. The valley was her home now, a place where she could find peace and purpose. One afternoon, while gathering berries, Grace heard distant voices. She paused, her heart quickening. She had grown used to the quiet of the valley, so the sound of people was unexpected. She moved carefully through the trees, trying to see who was approaching. As she reached the edge of the clearing, Grace saw a group of people entering the valley. They were Apache villagers moving with purpose and confidence. Grace felt a mix of curiosity and apprehension. She knew this was Taza's community, but she was unsure of how they would react to her presence. Taza, who had been fishing by the stream, noticed the villagers too. He approached them with a calm demeanor, speaking in a language Grace recognized but did not fully understand. The villagers greeted Taza with respect, acknowledging him as one of their own. Grace stayed back, observing the interaction. She felt nervous, unsure of her place in this new dynamic. The villagers glanced in her direction, their expressions a mix of curiosity and skepticism. Grace understood their hesitation. She was an outsider in their eyes. Taza spoke to the villagers, gesturing toward Grace. They listened, nodding as he explained her presence in the valley. Grace watched as Taza advocated for her, his words filled with sincerity and respect. She was grateful for his support, knowing it was vital for her acceptance. After some discussion, a few of the villagers approached Grace. They spoke softly, their eyes curious but kind. Grace greeted them with a smile, using the few words she had learned from Taza. The language barrier was a challenge, but she hoped her intentions were clear. The villagers seemed to understand her efforts. They nodded and smiled, acknowledging her willingness to connect. Grace felt a small wave of relief, sensing a shift in their perception. She knew it would take time to earn their trust, but this was a start. As the sun began to set, the villagers set up camp near the stream. Taza introduced Grace to more of his people, each interaction a step toward acceptance. She learned their names and observed their customs, fascinated by the richness of their culture. The village women intrigued Grace. They moved with grace and confidence, their roles in the community clearly defined. Grace watched as they prepared food and tended to children, their skills honed by years of practice. She admired their strength and resilience, qualities she hoped to embody. In the days that followed, Grace worked to integrate herself into the village life. She participated in daily activities, eager to contribute and learn. Language was still a barrier, but she communicated through gestures and shared tasks. Her efforts were met with patience, the villagers recognizing her desire to belong. The village women were initially distant, observing Grace with cautious eyes. But as time passed, they began to warm up to her. They shared small tasks, teaching her how to weave baskets and prepare traditional meals. Grace appreciated their guidance, grateful for their acceptance. Grace's pregnancy was a point of connection with the women. They offered advice and support, understanding the challenges she faced. Their shared experiences created a bond, one that transcended language and cultural differences. Grace felt a sense of community, a feeling she hadn't known in a long time. Taza continued to be a source of strength and support for Grace. He stood by her, advocating for her acceptance within the village. His presence was reassuring, a reminder that she was not alone in this journey. Their relationship grew deeper, built on trust and mutual respect. As the village got to know Grace, they began to see her as more than an outsider. She was becoming a part of their world, contributing to the community and learning their ways. Grace felt a growing sense of belonging, her heart filled with gratitude for the life she was building. The village elders took notice of Grace's efforts. They observed her willingness to learn and adapt, appreciating her respect for their culture. One elder, in particular, seemed intrigued by Grace. She was a wise woman, respected for her knowledge and insight. The elder approached Grace one day, her eyes kind and knowing. She spoke softly, her words gentle but firm. Grace listened, understanding the importance of this interaction. The elder recognized the bond between Grace and Taza, offering guidance and support for their growing connection. The elder's acceptance was significant, a sign that Grace was truly becoming a part of the village. Grace felt a sense of relief, knowing she had allies in this new world. Her journey from outsider to community member was unfolding, a testament to her resilience and determination. Grace knew there were still challenges ahead, but she felt ready to face them. She was no longer alone, surrounded by a community that supported and accepted her. Her heart was full, her spirit renewed. As night fell, Grace sat by the fire, reflecting on her journey. She had come so far from the woman left behind in the snow. She was stronger now, more connected to the people and land around her. With Taza and the village by her side, she felt ready to embrace whatever the future held. Grace settled into life with the village, her days filled with new routines and learning. The villagers accepted her as one of their own, and she felt grateful for the sense of belonging that had grown around her. Despite the challenges of language and culture, she found ways to connect and contribute. Each morning, Grace joined the village women in their daily tasks. They taught her how to weave baskets with nimble fingers, a skill that required patience and focus. Grace enjoyed the rhythm of the work, the way it allowed her mind to settle and her hands to create. The women were patient teachers, guiding her with gentle corrections and encouraging smiles. Cooking was another area where Grace found common ground with the women. They showed her how to prepare traditional meals using ingredients gathered from the land. Grace learned to grind corn and mix it with herbs, creating simple but nourishing dishes. She appreciated the knowledge they shared, knowing it would help her care for her growing child. Despite her progress, there were moments of misunderstanding. Language barriers led to mistakes, and Grace sometimes struggled to express herself. But she was determined to learn, to bridge the gaps with patience and effort. Her sincerity was evident, and the villagers respected her willingness to adapt. As her pregnancy advanced, Grace found herself needing more rest. Her body was changing, and she learned to listen to its needs. The village women were supportive, offering advice and help when she needed it. They understood the demands of pregnancy and were generous with their knowledge. Grace's relationship with Taza continued to deepen. They spent time together, sharing stories and moments of quiet companionship. Taza was a constant source of support, his presence reassuring and steady. Grace valued their partnership, knowing it was built on trust and mutual respect. They often spoke of the future, of their hopes and dreams for the child. Taza shared his vision of a life connected to the land, one that honored the traditions of his people. Grace listened, her heart full of hope and possibility. She wanted their child to grow up in a world filled with love and understanding. One day, as they sat by the stream, Taza spoke of his family and the legacy he hoped to pass on. Grace felt honored to be a part of that vision, to share in the dream of a future built on respect for the land and community. She knew their journey would not be easy, but she was ready to face it together. The village elders observed Grace and Taza's growing bond. They saw the potential for a union that would strengthen the community, a blending of cultures and traditions. The elders offered their support, recognizing the importance of their relationship. One elder, a wise woman with years of experience, approached Grace with a sense of purpose. She spoke of the connection between Grace and Taza, acknowledging the depth of their feelings. Grace listened, understanding the significance of the elder's words. She felt a sense of affirmation, knowing their bond was seen and valued. The elder offered guidance, sharing stories of other unions that had enriched the village. Grace was grateful for the wisdom and support, knowing it would help guide her path. She felt a sense of peace, knowing she was surrounded by a community that believed in their future. As time passed, Grace continued to integrate into the village life. Her efforts were met with appreciation, and she felt a growing sense of purpose. She was not just surviving, she was contributing, building a life that honored both her past and her present. Grace's journey was one of transformation, a testament to her resilience and determination. She had come a long way from the woman abandoned in the snow, finding strength in the connections she had forged. Her heart was full of gratitude for the people who had welcomed her and for the love that had grown between her and Taza. With each passing day, Grace felt more connected to the land and the people. She was learning to see the beauty in simple things, to appreciate the cycles of nature and the wisdom of those around her. Her life was a tapestry of experiences woven together with care and intention. As the seasons changed, Grace prepared for the arrival of her child. She knew there would be challenges, but she felt ready to face them. Her heart was full of hope, her spirit renewed by the love and support of her community. Grace's journey was far from over, but she felt a sense of peace and purpose. She was building a life filled with promise and possibility, surrounded by people who cared for her. With Taza by her side, she was ready to embrace the future, whatever it might hold. Together, they would continue to build a life that honored their past and celebrated their present. Grace's days in the village were filled with routine and anticipation. Her pregnancy was progressing, and she felt the changes in her body. The village women continued to support her, sharing their wisdom and care. Grace felt surrounded by a network of strength and compassion. One morning, as Grace was tending to the garden, she heard the sound of horses. She looked up to see a group of settlers approaching the village. Her heart skipped a beat, recognizing some of the faces from her past. Among them was Mr. Thompson, the leader who had left her behind. The settlers stopped at the edge of the village, unsure of their welcome. Taza and a few elders went to meet them, their expressions calm but cautious. Grace watched from a distance, her emotions a mix of fear and curiosity. Mr. Thompson stepped forward, speaking to Taza and the elders. Grace couldn't hear the words, but she could see the tension in their exchange. The settlers looked weary, their clothes worn from travel. They seemed to be seeking help or refuge. Grace felt a wave of conflicting emotions. These were the people who had abandoned her, yet here they were, reaching out for aid. She wondered what had brought them to this point, what hardships they had faced since leaving her behind. Taza returned to Grace, his expression thoughtful. He explained that the settlers were passing through and needed supplies. They had encountered difficulties on their journey and were looking for a safe place to rest. Grace listened, trying to process her feelings. She remembered the fear and despair of being left behind, but she also felt empathy for their struggles. She knew the challenges of the journey firsthand, the relentless push for survival. The village elders held a meeting to decide how to respond. Grace was invited to join, her voice considered important in this matter. She appreciated their respect, knowing her perspective could offer insight. During the meeting, Grace shared her thoughts. She spoke of the hardships she had faced and the kindness she had found in the village. She suggested offering help to the settlers, a gesture of goodwill that could build understanding between their worlds. The elders listened carefully, weighing her words. They discussed the potential benefits and risks, considering the impact on their community. In the end, they decided to offer aid, providing food and a place to rest. Grace felt a sense of relief at their decision. She hoped this act of kindness would bridge some of the gaps between their cultures. It was a chance to demonstrate the values of respect and compassion that the village upheld. The settlers were grateful for the assistance, their expressions filled with relief. They accepted the food and supplies with thanks, acknowledging the generosity of the village. Mr. Thompson approached Grace, a look of regret in his eyes. He spoke to her, his words humble and sincere. He expressed sorrow for leaving her behind, explaining the difficult choices he had faced. Grace listened, her heart softening. She understood the pressures of leadership, the weight of responsibility. Grace replied with grace, acknowledging the past but focusing on the present. She told Mr. Thompson of the life she had found, the community that had embraced her. Her words were filled with gratitude, a testament to the journey she had taken. As the settlers prepared to move on, Grace felt a sense of closure. She had faced her past and found a way to move forward. The encounter had reinforced her belief in the power of understanding and forgiveness. Taza stood by her side, a silent pillar of support. He understood the significance of the moment, the healing it offered. Grace appreciated his presence, knowing their bond was stronger for the experiences they shared. With the settlers gone, life in the village returned to its rhythm. Grace focused on her preparations for motherhood, supported by the community around her. She felt a sense of peace, knowing she was where she belonged. The encounter with the settlers had been a turning point, a moment of reflection and growth. Grace had faced her fears and found strength in her new life. Her heart was full of hope, her spirit renewed. As the days passed, Grace continued to build her future. She was surrounded by people who cared for her, a community that valued her contributions. Her journey was one of resilience and transformation, a testament to the power of love and understanding. Grace knew there would be more challenges ahead, but she was ready to face them. With Taza and the village by her side, she felt confident in the path she had chosen. Together, they would embrace the future, guided by the values of respect and compassion that bound them together. Life in the village flowed with a steady rhythm, and Grace felt at home. The villagers had become her family, and their traditions were now part of her daily life. Each day brought new tasks and lessons, and Grace embraced each one with a grateful heart. Her bond with Taza continued to deepen. They worked side by side, sharing responsibilities and dreams for the future. Taza's presence was a constant source of support, his steady nature grounding Grace in moments of uncertainty. One evening, as the sun dipped below the horizon, Taza and Grace sat by the fire. The night was calm, the air filled with the sound of crickets. Grace felt a sense of contentment, a peace that had taken root in her heart. As they watched the flames dance, Taza turned to Grace. His eyes held a depth of emotion, a sincerity that touched her deeply. He spoke softly, expressing his feelings for her. He spoke of the journey they had shared, the bond that had grown between them. Grace listened, her heart full of warmth and gratitude. She understood the significance of his words, the commitment he was offering. Her own feelings echoed his, a reflection of the connection they had nurtured. With a gentle certainty, Taza proposed a union. He respected both their traditions, wanting to honor both cultures in their commitment. Grace felt a rush of emotion, a joy that filled her entire being. She knew this was right, that their futures were meant to be intertwined. Grace accepted Taza's proposal with a heart full of love. She spoke of her hopes for their life together, the family they would build. Her words were filled with sincerity, a promise of partnership and understanding. The village celebrated their decision, recognizing the significance of their union. It was a blending of cultures, a testament to the power of love and respect. The community rallied around them, offering support and blessings for their future. A simple ceremony was planned, one that honored both Grace's past and Taza's traditions. The village came together to prepare, each person contributing to the celebration. Grace felt a deep sense of belonging, knowing she was part of something greater than herself. On the day of the ceremony, the village gathered in the clearing. The air was filled with anticipation and joy, a celebration of love and unity. Grace felt a sense of calm, a peace that assured her she was exactly where she needed to be. Taza and Grace stood together, surrounded by their community. The ceremony was simple yet profound, a reflection of their journey. They exchanged tokens of love, symbols of their commitment to each other and the life they were building. As they spoke their vows, Grace felt a wave of emotion. Her heart was full, her spirit renewed by the promise of the future. She looked at Taza, seeing the reflection of her own hopes and dreams in his eyes. The village celebrated the union with music and dance, a joyful expression of community and connection. Grace joined in, her movements filled with happiness and gratitude. She felt a deep sense of joy, knowing she was part of a family that embraced and supported her. As the celebration continued, Grace took a moment to reflect on her journey. She had come so far from the woman abandoned in the snow, finding strength and love in unexpected places. Her heart was full, her spirit renewed by the bonds she had formed. The ceremony marked a new beginning, a step forward in Grace's journey. She was no longer alone, surrounded by people who cared for her and believed in her future. Her life was filled with promise and possibility, a testament to the power of love and understanding. Grace knew there would be challenges ahead, but she felt ready to face them. With Taza by her side, she was confident in their path. Together, They would build a life that honored their past and celebrated their present. As the night wore on, Grace felt a sense of peace. She was surrounded by love, a community that had become her family. Her journey was one of transformation and growth, a reflection of the resilience and strength she had found within herself. With Taza by her side, Grace looked to the future with hope and determination. They were building something beautiful, a life filled with love and respect. Together, they would face whatever lay ahead, confident in the strength of their bond and the support of their community. After the ceremony, Grace and Taza settled into their life as partners. The village celebrated with them, and the sense of community was strong. Each day brought new tasks and shared responsibilities. They worked together, building a home filled with warmth and care. Grace's pregnancy was now at the forefront of their lives. She felt the baby move, a reminder of the new life they were preparing to welcome. The village women continued to offer their support, ensuring Grace had everything she needed. Taza was attentive, always ready to help. He gathered wood for their fire and made sure their home was comfortable. His care for Grace was evident in every action, and she felt loved and cherished. Their partnership was strong, built on mutual respect and understanding. Grace found joy in simple tasks like tending to the garden and preparing meals. She felt a sense of purpose, knowing she was contributing to their life together. Her days were filled with moments of contentment, a reflection of the happiness she had found. The village continued to thrive, each season bringing new challenges and opportunities. Grace and Taza worked to foster connections between their community and neighboring ones. They shared knowledge and resources, building bridges that strengthened their ties. Grace became a bridge between cultures, her experiences allowing her to connect with others in meaningful ways. She shared her knowledge, helping to foster understanding and collaboration. Her efforts were appreciated, and she felt a sense of accomplishment. Taza taught Grace more about his culture, sharing stories and traditions that enriched their life. She learned to make tools and craft items from natural materials, skills that empowered her within the village. Grace appreciated the knowledge, knowing it deepened her connection to the land and its people. Their relationship was tested at times, as all relationships are. There were moments of disagreement and misunderstanding, but they faced them together. Their bond was strong, built on trust and communication. They worked through challenges, emerging stronger for the experience. Grace appreciated Taza's patience and wisdom, qualities that guided them through difficult times. He was a steady presence, always willing to listen and understand. Grace valued this about him, knowing it was a key part of their partnership. As the seasons changed, Grace and Taza prepared for the arrival of their baby. They gathered supplies and made sure their home was ready. The village supported them, offering help and advice as the time drew near. Grace felt a mix of excitement and nervousness. She knew motherhood would bring new challenges, but she felt ready. Her heart was full of hope, and she looked forward to the new experiences that awaited her. One evening, as they sat by the fire, Grace and Taza spoke of their dreams for their child. They wanted to raise them in a world filled with love and respect, a place where they could grow and thrive. Their hopes were simple yet profound, a reflection of their values and beliefs. The village continued to prosper, enriched by the blending of ideas and experiences. Grace felt proud of the community they were building, a testament to the power of collaboration and understanding. She knew their efforts would leave a lasting impact, a legacy for future generations. As the weeks passed, Grace's anticipation grew. She felt the baby's movements, a reminder of the new life they were about to welcome. Her heart was full of love, ready to embrace the next chapter of their journey. The village prepared for the arrival of the baby, each person contributing in their own way. The sense of community was strong, a reflection of the bonds they had built. Grace felt surrounded by love and support, a reminder of the family she had found. As Grace and Taza faced the future, they did so with hope and determination. They knew there would be challenges, but they were ready to face them together. Their journey was one of resilience and growth, a reflection of the strength they had found in each other. With the village by their side, Grace and Taza felt confident in the path they had chosen. They were building a life filled with love and purpose, a testament to the power of connection and community. Together, they would embrace whatever the future held, guided by the values that bound them together. The day began like any other, with the sun rising over the village. Grace went about her usual tasks, feeling the familiar rhythm of her routine. But today was different. She could sense it in the air, in the way her body felt. The baby was coming. Grace paused, placing a hand on her belly. A wave of excitement and nervousness washed over her. She took a deep breath, steadying herself. She knew this moment would come and she was ready to face it. Taza noticed the change in Grace. His eyes met hers, filled with understanding and support. He was by her side in an instant, offering his steady presence. Grace felt comforted by his calmness, knowing she was not alone. The village women gathered around Grace, their hands gentle and reassuring. They guided her to a quiet space, prepared for this moment. Their experience was evident, their movements confident and sure. Grace lay down, focusing on her breathing. She felt a wave of pain, but she welcomed it, knowing it was part of the process. Her heart was full of anticipation, ready to meet the new life they had created. The hours passed in a blur of focused effort and support. Taza stayed close, his presence a source of strength. He held Grace's hand, his words soft and encouraging. She felt his love and commitment, a reminder of the journey they had shared. The village women worked with practiced skill, guiding Grace through each stage of labor. Their voices were calm and soothing, filled with wisdom passed down through generations. Grace appreciated their care, knowing she was in capable hands. As the sun dipped below the horizon, Grace felt a shift. The pain intensified, but so did her determination. She focused on her breathing, on the rhythm that would bring her child into the world. Finally, with one last push, Grace heard the first cries of her baby. Her heart soared, filled with an overwhelming sense of joy and relief. She reached out, eager to hold the new life she had brought into the world. The village women placed the baby in her arms, their expressions filled with pride and happiness. Grace looked down at the tiny face, her heart overflowing with love. The baby was perfect, a precious gift that filled her with awe. Taza leaned in, his eyes shining with emotion. He gently touched the baby's cheek, his expression one of wonder and gratitude. Grace felt a deep connection in that moment, a bond that united their family. They chose a name that honored both their heritages, a reflection of the life they were building. It was a name filled with meaning, a testament to their journey and the values they held dear. The village celebrated the arrival of the new life, their joy evident in every smile and gesture. The baby was a symbol of hope and unity, a blending of cultures that enriched their community. Grace felt a sense of peace as she held her child. She knew there would be challenges ahead, but she was ready to face them. Her heart was full, her spirit renewed by the love and support surrounding her. The experience had deepened Grace and Taza's bond, solidifying their partnership. They were a family now, united by love and commitment. Together, they would navigate the journey of parenthood, guided by the values they cherished. As night fell, the village settled into a quiet calm. Grace lay with her baby in her arms, Taza by her side. The warmth of the fire and the steady rhythm of their breathing filled the space with a sense of serenity. Grace looked at her child, marveling at the miracle of life. She felt a deep sense of gratitude for the path that had led her here, for the people who had become her family. Her journey was one of transformation and growth, a testament to the power of love and resilience. With Taza and the village by her side, Grace felt ready to embrace the future. She knew there would be challenges, but she was confident in their ability to face them together. Their life was filled with promise and possibility, a reflection of the strength they had found in each other. As the stars twinkled above, Grace closed her eyes, her heart full of hope. She was surrounded by love, a community that supported and believed in her. Her journey was far from over, but she felt ready to face whatever lay ahead, guided by the values that bound them together. The days after the birth of Grace and Taza's child were filled with new routines and discoveries. The village buzzed with the excitement of new life, and everyone was eager to help. Grace was grateful for the support, knowing she was part of a caring community. Each morning, she woke to the soft sounds of the village coming to life. Her baby nestled in her arms was a constant reminder of the love and commitment she and Taza shared. The little one's presence filled their home with joy and purpose. Grace and Taza navigated the challenges of parenthood together. There were sleepless nights and moments of uncertainty, but they faced them side by side. Taza's patience and calm demeanor provided balance and comfort. Grace appreciated his unwavering support, knowing they were a team. The village women continued to offer guidance and advice. They shared techniques for soothing a crying baby and tips for ensuring a restful sleep. Grace listened carefully, eager to learn from their experience. She felt fortunate to have such a wealth of knowledge at her fingertips. As the baby grew, Grace marveled at each new milestone. The first smile, the first grasp of a tiny hand, all were moments of wonder and joy. She cherished these experiences, knowing they were fleeting and precious. Grace's connection to the village deepened as she embraced her role as a mother. She participated in communal activities, her child often in her arms. The villagers welcomed the baby with open hearts, recognizing the child as a symbol of unity and hope. Taza continued to teach Grace about his culture, sharing stories and traditions that enriched their lives. He showed her how to craft toys for the baby using natural materials, a skill that delighted both mother and child. Grace appreciated these moments of creativity, seeing them as a way to blend their worlds. As the seasons changed, Grace and Taza worked to maintain their home and prepare for the future. They planted a garden, ensuring a steady supply of food for their family. Grace found joy in tending to the plants, teaching her child about the cycles of nature. The village prospered, strengthened by the blending of cultures and ideas. Grace and Taza played a vital role in fostering these connections, helping to build a community that valued diversity and collaboration. They were proud of their contributions, knowing they were making a difference. Grace reflected on her journey, recognizing the strength and resilience that had brought her to this point. She had faced loss and uncertainty, but she had also found love and belonging. Her heart was full, her spirit renewed by the life she had built. The village elders often spoke of the future, discussing ways to ensure prosperity for generations to come. Grace and Taza were involved in these conversations, their insights valued and respected. They felt a sense of responsibility, knowing they were shaping the path for their child and the community. As new parents, Grace and Taza continued to learn and grow. They faced challenges with determination and grace, knowing they had the support of their village. Their journey was one of love and commitment, a testament to the power of connection and understanding. Grace knew there would be more obstacles to overcome, but she felt ready to face them. Her life was filled with promise, guided by the values of respect and compassion that bound her to Taza and the village. As the sun set over the valley, Grace sat with her child in her arms. Taza joined them, his presence a comforting constant. Together, they watched the stars appear, a reminder of the vastness of the world and the possibilities it held. Grace felt a deep sense of peace, knowing she was exactly where she needed to be. Her journey had been one of transformation, filled with moments of challenge and triumph. She was grateful for every experience, each one a step on the path to where she stood now. With her family by her side, Grace looked to the future with hope. She was surrounded by love and support, a community that believed in her and her dreams. Together, they would continue to build a life filled with purpose and joy, confident in the strength of their bonds. Grace's story was far from over, but she was ready to face whatever came next. Her heart was full, her spirit strong, guided by the love and connection that had brought her to this moment. With Taza and the village by her side, she knew she was never alone, and she embraced the journey ahead with open arms. If you loved the story, like the video and subscribe.